Hello, everyone. I hope that you are having a great day. Welcome to our ongoing podcast. I'm Andy Gillum with Creatio Primus. Today, we're going to be exploring chemistry. We're going to call it Chemistry 101. I'm going to put on my professor outfit for the day. I've even got my professor glasses, and we're all set and ready to go. But before I lose half of the audience because of high school science class PTSD affecting those that hear the term element chart, don't worry, we're not going to get into any scientific debates here today. And the V that you see behind me, we're not going to be discussing vanadium. We're actually going to be discussing several items that all begin with the letter V: vision, visibility, volunteers, and volume of responsibility. I hope that as you take in all of this information, that it'll be helpful and useful in your mission. So let's dig right into all of these V subjects, and hopefully at the end, we'll have victory. Received a lot of comments and questions, a lot of dialogue over the last several months, looking at advisory boards and organizations. And the bottom line that we keep coming back to is the board chemistry, the advisory organization's chemistry, and what's involved in making a board or organization successful depends greatly on the chemistry of that group. And so we're going to be exploring some of the pitfalls and some of the ways to answer those problems, or maybe even to avoid them in the first place. So let's just kick it right off with our first title here. Hopefully you can see it on the screen behind me. Chivalry versus rivalry. What are we talking about here? We're talking about the ability for your advisory organization to operate smoothly, to get along with one another, versus individuals who may be causing consternation, maybe causing a rift between fellow board members, maybe even between an individual board member and the leadership of your organization. And so those are all causes for concern. And one of the things that will prevent your organization from moving forward and finding success, it will instead create stagnation. And so it is important to understand that in order to move forward, in order to find progress, to move towards goals and completion of those goals, that some individuals may need to be changed out from your advisory board. It's one of the big reasons why you have term limits in your advisory board. You have a rotation schedule. Normally about every 3 years, people are rotating off, and including your executive leadership, especially your executive leadership. A lot of times the individual seats on your advisory board executive committee need to rotate it out even more. They might even be just a one-year term. I had a board where we had the vice chair and the chair, and it was a one-year term. The vice chair moved into the chair position, and then a new vice chair was elected. So there was a constant refreshment of the leadership of that advisory organization. So finding a pattern for your advisory board to run smoothly is an absolute necessity. It's the chemistry that is needed for you to be successful. The second question that comes along with that is, how do we find that chemistry? And that is done through several processes. Number one, finding ways to bond your advisory board. That can be done through get to know you segments in your board, so that folks learn to understand where each other comes from, what your interests are, what your vocations are, creating a connectivity between your organizational members, as well as your staff and your ministry leadership. A second thing to consider is through the nominating committee, and looking at, and very carefully looking at, who you're bringing in, who you're rotating on, and who are rotating off. Sometimes you have individuals who are leaving your advisory board who are very valuable, and you don't want to lose them, but their time is through and they're rotating off, and you want to be able to recreate that through the nominating process and bring on individuals who are going to bring the same energy, the same influence, the same things that you need to make that board work. So those are all things to consider through the nominating committee as well. A third issue to bring chemistry to your board is an actual sit down with individuals that you might not feel are on the same page as you, and having heartfelt conversations with them. That's not always very easy. That can be very difficult. It needs to be pursued in very specific ways in a very positive light. And so those things have to be navigated very carefully. But sometimes an absolute necessity and something to consider if you've exhausted your other means of connecting with those individuals and they're not correcting course and they're still creating problems within your board, then you'll want to look at those one-on-one conversations and maybe bring about some understanding of what needs to take place. All of these things affect the vision of your board or organization. It's imperative that all the folks that are helping you, that are assisting you, all have a general focus, something that's written down, that's tangible, something that they can unite on a front for. Having a short-term and long-term strategy for your organization. Those are all incredibly important items. There's nothing that will kill a board faster than an indecisive future. If they don't know where you're going, if they don't know what you're doing, if they don't have a plan of action that has been put together, then you're looking at folks who are going to lose interest in what you're doing. Visibility is the second component to all of that, and it's imperative that your board feels like you are visible in your community. If you are not working towards that visibility through public relations, through annual dinners, through recognition events, through participation of social events that are happening, maybe a United Way dinner, things that bring folks together where they can see you and understand that you are working in your community. All of these things add excitement to your advisory board. They add excitement and a vision of where you are going. So vision automatically moves into visibility, and visibility moves into volunteers. It's a progression. Once you have an understanding of where you are going, and then you begin to work on that goal and become more visible in the community, then that's when you want to bring in people to help you in your services and in your mission. So volunteers, of which your advisory board are your number one volunteers. Never forget that. If you are not acknowledging their service, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So acknowledge the board, acknowledge their efforts, let them know how much you appreciate what they're doing. All of these things build chemistry for your board. You are just as important to the makeup and chemistry of your organization, your advisory organization, as the members are themselves. You're a vital part of that. You will help create that chemistry with your organization. And then lastly, looking at action versus debate. This comes up so often. I've talked with a number of individuals who say, listen, I have a great board. They are so well-intentioned, but we meet month after month after month, and we just talk, and we never seem to move forward. There are those advisory members who love to look at things. Here's the issue. They only have that 1, maybe 2 hours if you're lucky, each month. And so they only have that short amount of time to debate and to talk about particular subjects. So in order to further the action, there are things that are going to need to take place outside of the advisory board meetings. That is phone calls, that's committee meetings. All of these things are necessary to move things forward as the month progresses. If you're just waiting for that one time during the month where you're meeting at the advisory board meeting, you've lost ground. You need to be moving forward all through the month. You need to be making calls and talking about particular subjects. Moving forward is absolutely necessary throughout the month. So all of those things are things that you need to consider. So chivalry versus rivalry, finding folks who are willing to be there and not fight you along the way. Chemistry and camaraderie, finding things that will build a group together, where they find that they are involved, they have a focus, they have a vision. They are looking to be seen more in what they're doing. They're looking for that visibility. And then they are incorporating volunteers as they come through, which in the end builds a larger organization and creates a larger volume of responsibility. All of those things, rather than diminishing what you're doing, you're creating something bigger. You're scaling your operation, your mission. And so you're looking to increase the volume of responsibility. And then hopefully after all of those things are put together in progression, and those are not things that happen overnight. It is something that requires daily attention. And you find that victory in all that you're doing. You find success and not stagnation. So all of these things are things you need to consider in your daily work. Advisory boards are not just a one-time thing that happens for an hour here and there. If you are not involving them on a regular basis, if you are not talking to your committees and saying, okay, what are we doing in public relations? How are we doing with finance? What are we doing with fundraising? All of these things are accumulating, or they are withering away, one or the other. So if you want true success, if you really want things to grow, if you want excitement in your organization, you have got to build chemistry. It is absolutely necessary. I hope this chemistry lesson has been helpful for you, and looking at the elements, the V elements, and I hope that you find victory in what you are doing. Chemistry. It is so important and so vital. If you're not experiencing good chemistry in your organization, feel free to give us a call. Contact information here on the bottom of the screen. I'm Andy Gillum, Creatio Consultants, and we are just so glad to be able to help and assist you in your daily efforts to reach and help people. So give us a call, write us. We'll be glad to help. Have a great day.